Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremiah. Today, we will be talking about diagnostic images and global health. Diagnostic images are important tools in diagnosing and treating pathology in the healthcare industry. It is currently lacking globally in a large amount because many facilities and patients across the globe does not have access to these images. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what a diagnostic images actually look like for some of you that are not quite familiar with it. That's a chest X-ray. That's a CT of the abdomen. CT, the acronym stands for computed tomography. That's an MRI of the brain, which is the magnetic resonance imaging. Medical professionals across the globe that have access to that imagery are able to properly diagnose and plan a treatment process for a patient that are under their care. There are about 3 factors that I want to focus on when I'm talking about radiological services across the globe today. One is the fatality as a result of lack of these images, the problem that is associated with radiological services, and what we can do in terms of solution to improve this factor of the healthcare services. That's a picture of my daughter, but I will come back to her in a minute. First, I want to talk to you guys about a few other instances that are related to fatality in radiology. One of that situation had to do with my brother. He died, and the reported prognosis was that he had a heart problem. The only small problem with that was that there was no diagnostic imagery at any point to show that he had some kind of a heart disease that would have been or would have prompted or aided a physician to be able to administer the proper treatment for him. When it comes to a heart problem, in many clinical settings, a chest X-ray or chest CT or MRI of the chest is always obtained by clinical facility to show what exactly is wrong. There's a specific exam known as the CT of the chest, which is considered an angiogram. It pretty much shows the functionality and the impact of how your heart works when it's functioning properly. This images was not available for the physician that was treating my brother, and he died eventually after a long haul of pain and costs associated with that. Another instance I want to bring to your attention is my mother. My mother recently had a fall, a common fall, and she sustained an injury on the right leg. You'd be surprised that there was so much difficulty being able to diagnose how bad the injury was on her leg because there was no imagery, a clinical imagery at any time that was obtained to show how deep the injury she sustained was. In fact, her leg got worse by the day to the point that we were worried that she might develop gangrene, which might lead to her leg being amputated. You know, in some part of the world, people have the tendency to substitute scientific tools or clinical experience for superstition and other factors that are related to that because of the lack of knowledge and tools and expertise to properly treat a patient. I am a great believer in religion. And why is that even a factor in this topic? One, people pray a lot most of the time, and they pray for God to perform a miracle. But I'm also a believer in science, which means that you should use the proper tools to treat a problem when you have one. In this case, for my mom, eventually for her, she did get better. Partly, I would admit, that it probably was because she prayed a lot. Because the clinical treatment that she actually needed was not sufficient enough to treat her properly. I said I will come back to my daughter in a minute. So my daughter was born at 12 pounds. So right away, when she was born, she showed some evidence, some signs, evidence of breathing problem. And the doctor speculated that it's possible that she might have what they call CCHD, which is critical congenital heart defect. This is a critical diagnosis. And this happened in rural America. So this is not something that is, diagnostic imaging problem is not something that is isolated to some third world country or some remote part of the world. This is everywhere. Unfortunately, the hospital that we were at did not have enough staff to be able to provide these services for her. They only had one machine that is able to perform the exam that was needed, which was echocardiogram. And they had one tech that was supporting the entire hospital at that point. And on top of that, not only will it be that when the exam was finally obtained, whenever that would be, that exam will be sent to a remote location to be read. Why? Because the entire hospital does not have a pediatric cardiologist that is capable of interpreting an echocardiogram. So from that scenario, you can see we spent a few hours for a critical exam that was ordered a stat. A stat is the term they use in the medical industry to mean right away, but we were talking about hours before an echocardiogram was performed on her. Luckily for us, she was okay, and she's doing much better today. But not everybody is that lucky. I'll give you a couple of examples. One, there was a patient in Kenya, and the radiology and attending physician that was taking care of the patient wanted to obtain a CT of the brain. The problem was that the hospital did not have a CT machine to be able to obtain that scan. So the patient has to be transported to a location that can perform the exam. The problem with that is that by the time the exam was performed and they found out that the patient had a bleeding around the brain, and before they can rush him back to the hospital for surgery, he died. Another similar case in Kenya. A patient, the radiologist suspected that the patient has a lesion of the brain, but needed a CT scan to confirm that that is the case. And we don't need to know what the fate of that patient was, but you know if you have a lesion in your brain, it's not fine and needs to be treated properly. And for you to properly treat it, you need a diagnostic images to see where the lesion is and to carry out the surgery that is related to that. That is not the case in many places in the world, and people die because of lack of diagnostic images to properly treat a patient. Picture is worth 1,000 words, they say. It's true. The people that coined the phrase picture is worth 1,000 words really understand that it is not only integral to explaining difficult concepts, it shows you exactly what you're looking at. And this might not be an obvious fact in the radiological services, even though it might be implicitly referenced, but picture does tell us a lot of story, both internally and externally. Take, for instance, that's an X-ray of the arm. If you look closely, you can see, for those of you that can tell, there is a broken bone on the right arm. Radius is what they call it medically. And that's it. You've seen the picture, you know exactly where the problem is. You don't have to spend money, you don't have to spend time, you don't have to run around to look for what is wrong with the patient. Why is the patient under so much pain? Of course, yeah, people can be asked on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your level of pain? But that doesn't tell you where the fracture is. That doesn't help an orthopedics to tell where the problem is. But with a picture, it's easy. So, now, the question is, We've been talking about radiology for a few minutes now. How does it really work? Does anybody really know? Well, I'll tell you how it works. A patient either admitted into a hospital or being referred to a hospital or being brought into a hospital through ED, which is the emergency department, maybe sustain a trauma, accident, a road accident, anything of that nature. And the attending physician or the family physician requests that a diagnostic image, like what I've shown you previously, be obtained so that they can tell what is wrong with the patient, depending on what the prognosis they're thinking is. So the patient images is obtained, stored, transferred to radiologist, and it's read. That's it. That's how it works. Many of you probably know somebody that have done one of these or two of these, or you yourself have done it personally. So now, problem in radiology. If this is a vital tool that we need to have, why is it a problem? Why is it not available everywhere? One of the reasons is that it's expensive. It is, when it comes to location-wise, it is poorly located. Some places are highly utilized that have this equipment. Some places underutilized. Another essential problem that you really need to know when it comes to radiological services is that the patient today does not really know why they're getting a specific exam. Yes, sometimes they tell you, okay, this is what you have to do. You have to prep the day before, and we're getting this exam because, say, AKA, you're having pneumonia. We want to see your chest. But does the patient really know why they're getting an MRI compared to a CT? Do they really know why they're getting an ultrasound compared to an X-ray? And you might ask, why does that matter? Well, this is why it matters. A patient that is given a CT exam compared to an MRI is more exposed to radiation than somebody that, say, is taking an MRI exam. Different frequencies, but radiation is highly possible with a CT because, one, either you inject the radiation dose or you can swallow it. Same thing applies to radiographical images, which is X-ray. Ultrasound, you don't have to worry about that. And this is important because radiation, though there have been some work and development to try to reduce the radiation dose that you get exposed to when you get an exam like a CT or an X-ray, it's still a problem. And enough radiation is capable of altering your DNA. And this is where it gets really scary. Anything that is capable of altering your DNA is capable of causing cancer. That's why patient needs to know why they're getting a specific exam compared to not having a different modality. Modality is the term they use to differentiate the different type of exam that you're getting. And on top of that, patient does not have the opportunity to have a peer-reviewed, a second opinion. Because it's almost impossible today for an insurance company to pay for a second opinion if you don't have a really good reason for it. That hospital is located in South Nigeria. It's in West Africa. Mentioned earlier that poorly located equipment can contribute to the problem of access to the patient. That hospital has one CT scanner. It's probably the population of that area is probably 3 times of the size of Roha. But compared to a more dense population center, say Lagos, Abuja, Shanghai, New York, and stuff, those dense populated areas can probably really make a good use of a CT scanner. But in that hospital, in the remote part of the country, it's probably almost a few hand of people that will ever use that CT scanner. So poorly located equipment doesn't help. That hospital is located here in the state. It has 2 CT scanners. And you'd be surprised, this is thousands to tens of thousands of patients a year. Highly, highly utilized equipment in that hospital. The next problem we're going to talk about is the technical and professional know-how. There's a lack of knowledge in the world today when it comes to radiological services. In fact, there are many more radiologists in Boston, in an avenue in Boston, Massachusetts, than there are in the whole of West Africa. There are about 124 radiologists in one hospital alone in Boston, and there is only 2 in the whole country of Liberia. The World Health Organization estimated that 2/3 of the world population does not have access to radiological services. 2/3. Currently, I looked it up. The world population is at 7.5 billion, and I did the math on this. That's about 5 billion people that does not have access to radiological services. That is incredible. How can anybody survive? This is what we're trying to fix. Solutions. We have to. We don't have a choice. We have to think outside the box. That's what we have to do. The traditional way is not going to work. There's a lot of reasons for why it would not work. It's too expensive. Some of the locations, they're not up to standard. They can't acquire equipment of this size. We don't have the technical know-how. We don't have the professional know-how. I've stated facts for that, and that's true. So that's why we cannot solve it the traditional way. So thinking outside the box is what we need to do. And that's why I'm proposing this solution. A distributed radiological network. Call it cloud radiology if you want. Computers is going to be the thing to solve the world's most difficult problem. It is. Supercomputers are going to solve the problem humans cannot solve. And we are currently at the position to be able to solve this problem. We have to develop better algorithms to be able to, one, for instance, put hospital in the proper location or put an equipment in the proper location so that a patient from all over the globe can get to it sooner and quicker. For some of you that doesn't know what distributed network would look like, it's a bunch of computers clustered together. And with an expert system, we would use the expert system to help with the diagnosis. We will use radiologists across the globe with a variety of experience. We will no longer be restricted to a specific region. People that are exposed to different kinds of sickness will have access to our system. And patient will be able to get access to these radiologists in real time. And how are we going to do that? Other than the fact that we're going to have a bunch of computers available? Of course. Don't forget the fact that it's a patient information, so we have to secure it. So that is part of a plan. It will be highly secured. I know. And I know how to do it. Every patient or every potential patient will have access to an app on their phone that they can use to work in conjunction with their local physician or hospital or scanning center to request images when one is needed in real time. And they'll be able to send these images to our distributed network to be stored, rated, and reported back to the ordering physician. So we don't have to go through the same thing my daughter go through, or my mom go through, or my brother go through, or the patient in Kenya went through. That's one. So application on your phone. Everybody, most part of the world has a phone today. See, there's an interesting thing about having a phone. And if you still remember a landline was something that people used to use. They still use it today. But the key thing about that is that if everybody has waited for every country in the world to have access to an infrastructure to support a landline, the world today, as we know, will still be in communication darkness. But cell phone has made communication across the globe possible. So we're going to tap into that power. That's what we're going to use. We're going to give people power to use their phone to acquire images to be treated. We will also provide a portable device. We have portable devices now in medical imagery from ultrasound that can be used to obtain images in these remote locations. And anyway, as a matter of fact, we will send portable mobile vehicles that will go to this location to assist patients acquire these images if they haven't acquired one yet. We will do what Uber did to personal transportation. We'll come to you if you can't come to us. And thirdly, this is a phrase that I coined myself. If you're in a place that we can't get to you through road, no road transportation, or it's an emergency, you need a real time. We won't use a chopper, we won't use an helicopter. It's probably more expensive, but that time will come. It's a plan. But we'll send what we call a medical drone. And this is the key thing about a medical drone. A medical drone will be able to scan you in real time and send the image to the global network to be rated and reported to you in real time. So you don't have any time to waste. And at the end of this all, the key thing is to provide quality health care to everyone. Make it accessible so that nobody has to die for simple pathology or sickness like a broken leg that turned into a possibility of having a gangrene or a heart defect that wasn't caught on time to be treated. Nobody has to die from things that we can solve today. We just don't properly optimize the resources that we currently have. Quality healthcare, that's what everybody wants. And we can do that. So I hope you join me today, hopefully, in this effort to at least try to save a life. Even if we can save one life, one leg, it is worth the effort. Thank you.